The school nurse called me on a Tuesday at 11:17 and asked how quickly I could get to Willow Creek Elementary. "Lily fell on the playground," she said. "She may need stitches, and we have you listed as her legal guardian." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. I was Lily's grandmother. I was not her legal guardian. My granddaughter did not live with me. She lived with my son, Derek, in an apartment almost 40 minutes away. The nurse lowered her voice. "Mrs. Hale, the enrollment file says both children live at your address 5 days a week. It also says you make school and medical decisions when their father is working." I looked at the yellow residency form on my kitchen counter. It had arrived that morning in an envelope from the district. My name and address appeared at the bottom. The signature looked enough like mine to fool a stranger. My son had not borrowed my mailbox. He had turned me into a guardian on paper, enrolled his children in my neighborhood school, and taught them to repeat the lie. Before the week ended, he would ask me to sit in a school office and swear it was all true. If someone in your family has ever called a lie a favor because they expected you to carry it, tell me what boundary finally made you stop. Do you believe love can survive the truth? Subscribe and stay with me. My name is Monica Hale. I am 40 years old. For 18 years, I worked behind the front desks of public schools. I knew what happened when emergency records were wrong. I knew why schools asked where a child slept. I knew which adult could authorize care and answer the phone. That was why my hands shook when the nurse said, "Can you come?" "Yes," I told her. "I'm on my way." I drove to Willow Creek with the yellow form beside me. Every red light felt personal. I kept hearing the same sentence in my head: legal guardian. Derek had never asked me to become one. He had asked to use my address 3 months earlier. I had said no. At the time, he called it a small favor. He said Owen needed a better math program and Lily needed a reading specialist. Willow Creek had both. His apartment was outside the boundary by less than 12 miles, but the district line cut between our neighborhoods like a ruler. "It's not like we're taking something from anybody," he had said. "The kids would just get a fair chance." I loved my grandchildren. Owen was 9, serious and careful. He took broken radios apart on my dining table. Lily was 7 and read every road sign aloud. She guessed at half the words. I understood why Derek wanted more for them. I also understood the form he wanted me to sign. It did not ask whether I loved them. It asked where they lived. "They don't live here," I told him. "They could stay sometimes." Sometimes is not 5 nights a week. He had gone quiet. Then he gave the thin smile he used when he wanted to look reasonable. "Forget I asked?" I should have known Derek rarely forgot a solution he liked. He only stopped discussing it with the person standing in his way. Willow Creek sat behind a row of maple trees. They were red and gold that October. I had attended Owen's spring concert there the year before. Derek still rented inside the district then. I knew the front office smelled like pencil shavings, floor wax, and whatever lunch the cafeteria had started before sunrise. The secretary asked for my identification. That was my first warning that the problem was bigger than a scraped knee. She compared my license to the computer screen, then she looked at me more carefully. "Thank you, Mrs. Hale. The nurse is waiting." Lily sat on a cot with an ice pack against her eyebrow. There was blood on the collar of her purple shirt. She was awake and talking. The cut was narrow. The nurse thought urgent care could close it with adhesive. A doctor still needed to decide. Lily reached for me. "Grandma, Dad said you were working." I was home. Her eyes moved away from mine. Children do that when the truth is close, and they are afraid it belongs to an adult. I signed only the release that allowed me to take her from the building. When the nurse handed me a second page authorizing treatment, I stopped. "This says I'm her educational guardian. That's what we have on file." I never signed that. The nurse's face changed. Not dramatically. School employees learn to keep surprise behind their eyes. She called the principal. The principal asked me to wait a few minutes. I texted Derek. "Lily is hurt. I'm at Willow Creek. Call me now, he called before I put the phone down. How bad is it? She needs urgent care. Why does the school think she lives with me? Silence. Derek, I was going to explain. You told them I was her guardian. I told them you help. The form says she sleeps at my house 5 nights a week. It was the only way to keep both kids there. Did you sign my name? Another silence. This one answered me, then his voice changed. He stopped sounding like a frightened father and started sounding like a man negotiating a parking ticket. Mom, this is not the time. Lily is bleeding. I know, I'm looking at her. Take care of her, and I'll meet you at urgent care. We can talk after. He hung up before I could answer. The principal was Ms. Caldwell. She came to the nurse's office with a folder against her chest. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with silver hoops and the calm expression of someone who had already handled 3 crises before lunch. She looked at Lily first. How are you doing, brave girl? It stings. I'm sorry. Your dad is meeting you at the doctor. Lily nodded. Then Ms. Caldwell turned to me. Mrs. Hale, I don't want to discuss enrollment details in front of Lily. We can speak later today or tomorrow. Right now, she needs care. Thank you, but I do need a clear answer. Are you saying the address and guardianship information in the file are inaccurate? Yes, Lily flinched, not from pain, from the word inaccurate. I knelt beside her. Honey, none of this is your fault. She stared at the floor. Ms. Caldwell heard what I heard. She closed the folder. We'll handle the adult part with adults. At urgent care. Derek arrived in work boots and a gray company sweatshirt. He crossed the waiting room in 3 long steps. Then he knelt and held Lily's face between his hands. That part was real. His fear was real. His love for her was real. That made everything harder. People like simple villains because simple villains make clean decisions possible. Derek was not simple. He packed Owen's lunches in little divided containers because his son hated when foods touched. He learned sight word games for Lily. He worked overtime when rent went up. He also forged my signature and put his children in the middle of the lie. The doctor used medical glue on Lily's cut. She did not need stitches. She winced when the skin near her eyebrow pulled tight. Derek promised Lily a milkshake. Then he asked me to step into the hall. We stood beside a vending machine while the children watched a cartoon through the open exam room door. He said I had panicked and turned a correctable problem into an investigation. In his version, the school would remove the children immediately. Owen would lose the friends who had ended his Sunday stomachaches, and Lily would lose the reading specialist who had finally reached her. He spoke as if I had caused every consequence by answering the principal honestly. I reminded him that the wrong emergency record had already delayed the right parent from being called. I had answered that day, but I could have been out of town. The injury had been minor. He had not known that when the phone rang. Derek looked through the doorway at Lily and tightened his jaw. I did this for them, he said. You used my name. He corrected me and called it an address. So I pointed to the line naming me as guardian. His answer was quiet. An address alone wasn't enough. That sentence stripped away his last claim of confusion. He had discovered one lie would not work and built the next one on top of it. He admitted the district was checking residency files that month and said we only had to get through the review. I asked who he meant by we. He accused me of speaking like a school secretary instead of a mother. I had moved from a school front office 3 years earlier, but he still turned my experience into a personality flaw whenever facts became inconvenient. Rules, forms, procedures. He spoke as if I had worshipped paper instead of watching bad information fail children when adults lied on it. I asked what he actually wanted. He wanted 1 sentence from me if the district called. The children stayed at my house during the week. I told him they did not. He said they could begin now. It was as though a new arrangement could travel backward through time. When I refused, his face went still. He asked whether I would really make his children leave Willow Creek over 1 sentence. I told him I had not created the problem. He said I could still solve it. That was the rhythm of our relationship. I became a mother at 15. Derek became a father at 16. He had been 1 year older than I was. By 40, I had spent most of my life trying to keep the next generation from feeling the panic that shaped mine. Derek made the emergency. I proved my love by cleaning it up. I paid the towing fee after he ignored a parking sign at 17. I covered a deposit after he abandoned a lease at 19 without reading the penalty clause. During his divorce at 23, I filled his freezer. I picked up the children and told everyone he needed time. I had confused rescuing him with supporting him for so long that he no longer heard a difference. Lily called for us. The conversation ended, but the pressure did not. On the drive back to my house, Owen sat beside his sister in the rear seat. Derek followed in his truck. I had offered to keep the children until he finished his shift because none of this was their fault and because I still loved them more than I hated the situation. Halfway home, Lily whispered, "Are we in trouble?" "No, Dad said the school might ask where we sleep." Owen turned toward the window. I kept my voice steady. "What did he tell you to say?" "Grandma," Owen warned. It was not a warning for me. It was for his sister. Lily pressed both hands between her knees. "He said we sleep at your house on school nights. He said it counts because we're family." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Did he say anything else?" Owen answered this time. "He said adults ask dumb questions and we should keep answers simple." "Do you sleep at my house on school nights?" "No. Then you never have to tell anyone that you do." Owen's voice cracked. "But they'll make us leave." I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and turned around in my seat. They looked so small. Owen was trying to be the adult his father had recruited. Lily still had dried blood near her ear. "Listen to me," I said. "Your school may change, it may not. The adults will figure that out. You are not responsible for protecting any adult from the truth. Not your dad, not me, nobody." Lily started crying. Owen did not. He stared at his shoes and asked, "Is Dad going to jail?" "No, this is not a television show. Nobody is going to drag him away, but he does have to correct what he filed." That was what I believed then. I did not yet know he had used my address on more than one form. I did not know he had given the school a copy of my utility bill. And I did not know the district had already scheduled a home verification visit at my house for Friday morning. The children spent the afternoon at my house. Lily lay on the couch with a blanket and watched a baking show. Owen sat at the dining table with a screwdriver and the broken kitchen timer I had saved for him. Neither child mentioned school again. Derek arrived after 6 with 2 milkshakes and a smile that was too bright. He kissed Lily's forehead, inspected the bandage, and thanked me as if we had not argued beside a vending machine 3 hours earlier. Then he saw the yellow envelope on my counter. The return address belonged to the district enrollment office. The letter inside said they were verifying several files after routine mail had been returned from listed residences. It asked the resident adult to confirm that the children lived at the address on record. Derek picked it up. "You opened this." "It was addressed to me. It's about the kids. It uses my name." He folded the letter along its original crease. "I can handle it." "No, you can explain it." Owen had stopped turning the screwdriver. I motioned toward the hall, not in front of them. Derek told the children to get their backpacks. Lily asked if she could finish the show. He said no. The speed of his answer made her face close. I walked them to the door. Lily hugged me carefully because of her eyebrow. Owen stood stiff until I put a hand on his shoulder. "You are not in trouble," I reminded him. Derek heard me. Nobody said they were. Owen looked from his father to me. "Can we still come here?" "Of course." Derek opened the door. "We need to go." After their truck left, I carried the yellow form to my desk. My house had been quiet for 2 years. That was how long Paul had been gone. I had kept the house because the mortgage was manageable and moving felt like throwing away a map I still needed. The second bedroom held a sewing table and a treadmill. A narrow bed waited there for the grandchildren. They stayed overnight maybe once a month. No honest person could look at that room and believe 2 children lived there 5 nights a week. I read the form from top to bottom. Derek had checked a box saying his housing was temporary. He listed my home as the children's primary residence. Beneath that, he identified me as the resident caregiver and himself as a parent who stayed elsewhere because of work. I had never seen the page before. My signature appeared at the bottom in blue ink. It was close. The first letter leaned correctly. The last name had the small break I always made between the A and the L, but the pressure was wrong, and the date had been written in a style I never used. For years, I had signed hundreds of school forms. I had also signed every birthday card Derek received. I knew my own name. Derek knew it too. I took photographs of every page. I called the district number on the letter. A recorded message said the office had closed. I left my name, address, and callback number. I said I had received a residency verification involving my grandchildren and that the signature was not mine. I did not accuse Derek of a crime. I did not use the word forgery. I stated the facts. My thumb hovered over the call button for almost a minute, because some part of me still believed a good mother gave her child one more chance to fix his mistake privately. Then I remembered Lily asking whether she was in trouble. I made the call. Derek texted 20 minutes later, "Please do not contact the district until we talk." I replied that I already had. His next message said, "You have no idea what you just did," and I set the phone face down. The next morning, I went through my desk files. The utility bill he had submitted was not in the envelope. I only knew about it because the verification letter listed accepted proof and referred to the electric statement already on file. Then I remembered a Sunday in August. The children had come for lunch. My printer jammed while I was printing an insurance form. Derek fixed it. A utility statement had been sitting in the output tray because I had printed it for a rebate application. At the time I noticed the page was gone, I assumed I had filed it. I checked the folder. The statement was not there. That small absence hurt more than the copied signature. Derek had stood in the room where his father's photograph hung above my desk. He had taken a page with my name and home on it. Then he used it to prove a story I had refused to tell. The district returned my call at 9:12. The enrollment coordinator had the file open. She confirmed that a utility bill and caregiver affidavit had been uploaded through Derek's parent account. "Did you authorize your son to use the address?" she asked. "No." "Do the children reside with you?" "They visit, they do not reside here." "Did you sign the caregiver affidavit?" "No," she paused. I heard keys tapping. "Mrs. Hale, there is also a transportation declaration indicating the children are picked up and dropped off near your home." "They are not." The bus records show daily use of the Oak Lane stop. Oak Lane was 2 blocks from my house. Who meets them? I don't know. That answer frightened me. Derek worked at a heating and air company across town. His shift ended after 4. The bus reached Oak Lane shortly after 3. Are the children walking to my house? I can't answer that. They have never come here after school. Another pause. The coordinator's voice softened. We'll need to review the full file. In the meantime, the school will contact the father directly for routine matters, and we will note that you dispute guardianship. Will the children be removed today? No, we do not make immediate changes during a phone call. There is a process. Good. You sound familiar with school procedures. I spent 18 years as a school secretary. Then you know we also have to consider the children's stability. I do, that is why I called. She asked whether I could attend a review the following Wednesday. I agreed. Before we ended, she mentioned the home verification. Our contractor has a visit scheduled for Friday morning. I did not schedule that. The parent account selected the time. What happens during the visit? They confirm the children have a functional sleeping space and personal belongings at the listed residence. It is usually brief. I looked toward the second bedroom. The narrow bed held a quilt my mother made before her eyesight failed. A basket under the window held a few toys. There were no school uniforms, no daily medications, no drawers of clothing, and no sign that Owen or Lily started their mornings there. "Please do not cancel it," I said. The coordinator hesitated. "You want the visit to proceed?" "Yes, I will be home." After the call, I drove to the Oak Lane bus stop beside a small park. At 3:18, a yellow bus pulled over. 6 children stepped down. Owen and Lily were last. Lily smiled when she saw my car, but Owen looked frightened. A blue sedan waited across the street. I recognized the driver from Derek's apartment complex. She introduced herself as Carla and said Derek had asked her to collect the children every Tuesday and Thursday since school started. On the other 3 days, she explained, they walked from the stop to the public library and waited there until Derek finished work. The library was almost a mile away, across Jefferson Avenue. Carla believed I knew about the routine because Derek had told her so. Of course he had. Every piece of his arrangement depended on another adult believing I knew. I thanked Carla and took the children with me. Once we were away from the park, I asked how often they made the walk. Owen said every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. At 9 years old, he considered himself old enough to escort his 7-year-old sister. Lily quickly added that a librarian knew them and that they always waited indoors. Their confidence did not comfort me. It showed how many adults had quietly filled the gaps Derek created. I had spent years calling parents when buses were missed or pickup plans changed. Most dangerous situations did not begin with cruelty. They began with one adult assuming another adult was watching. Derek had built the entire week from assumptions. Carla believed the library covered 3 afternoons. The librarian believed a parent knew where the children were. The bus driver believed the Oak Lane address led to a responsible adult. I was the adult named on paper. Yet I had not known they were there. When I asked why they had never walked the 2 blocks to my house, Lily said, "Dad says you take naps." Owen corrected her and said their father believed I liked quiet and should not be bothered. That was the story Derek had built for them. Grandma's address was useful. Grandma herself was not. I made grilled cheese at home, then called my son. He answered as if I were creating another inconvenience. I told him I had found the children at Oak Lane and learned about their walk to the library. He defended the traffic light and Carla's schedule. He also cited Owen's ability to follow directions. Each detail was meant to prove he had a system. None proved that 2 young children were safe. I asked why he had kept them from my door after using my home to determine their bus route. He claimed he had been respecting my wish for quiet. I told him not to dress concealment as consideration. Then I explained that the district would verify my house on Friday and that I intended to tell the truth. Derek tried to turn the visit into another opportunity. He could bring clothes that night, add school supplies to the bedroom, and make the arrangement real before anyone arrived. I reminded him that pajamas left after a weekend did not establish a residence. His answer exposed the whole plan. "I just need the room to look lived in." There it was. He did not want to make the record accurate. He wanted to improve the set. I refused. Derek lowered his voice and accused me of enjoying the power. I asked whether he truly believed I enjoyed learning that my grandchildren crossed Jefferson Avenue alone because their father had built a school routine around a lie. He shifted to an older accusation. According to him, I had always hated any decision I did not control. That found an old bruise. Paul had been the easy parent, the one who bought loud toys, made animal-shaped pancakes, and promised we would figure things out. I remembered permission slips and dental appointments. I knew whether the electric bill cleared after Paul died. Derek polished his father's softness and sharpened my caution. In his version, Paul trusted him while I managed him. The truth was less useful. Paul had loved our son fiercely. He had also warned him that charm was not a plan. I began a sentence about what his father would have done. Then I stopped because I hated using the dead as witnesses. Derek finished it anyway. He said Paul would care more about the children than a district line. I told him Paul would never ask them to lie. Derek said I could not know that. I reminded him I had been married to his father for 20 years. He answered that he had been Paul's son. We both fell silent. Grief becomes a tool when you hold it by the wrong end. We had just cut each other with it. I ended the call with one clear boundary. I would not move their belongings into my house for an inspection. I would not sign a form. I would not claim they lived with me. Derek hung up without answering. At 7 that evening, my garage keypad beeped. I was rinsing dishes. Derek still had the code from the winter my water heater burst. I had never changed it because I wanted him to reach me in an emergency. He came through the laundry room carrying a plastic bin. Owen followed with a backpack. Lily carried a pillow almost as wide as her shoulders. I asked what they were doing. Derek set the bin down and said, "Making this true." The words were so absurd that nobody moved. Then Lily's pillow slipped from her arms. I closed the garage door and told the children to take their belongings back to the truck. Derek stepped between me and the bin. He argued that they could stay until the district finished its review, as though a few nights would validate the previous months. I told him he was not moving his children into my house like evidence. He reminded me they were my grandchildren. I reminded him they were children. They were not furniture for an inspection. Owen's face went pale, so I lowered my voice and told Derek to take them outside. He accused me of breaking my promise that the children would always be welcome. I said they were welcome for real visits, not for a performance arranged because a stranger was coming to count beds. Lily began to cry. That ended the argument in front of them. I handed her the pillow and assured her she had done nothing wrong. Owen put an arm around his sister. They waited in the truck. Once the door closed, Derek accused me of humiliating them. I told him he had done that by making them carry props for an adult lie. The word fraud made his face twist. He said it was my favorite word. I had not used it until that moment. He returned to the same defense. I had called the district instead of calling him. I reminded him that our first conversation had happened 3 months earlier and had ended with a clear no. Derek pointed toward the driveway and described what Willow Creek had changed. Owen no longer developed stomachaches on Sunday nights. Lily had begun reading aloud. He wanted me to imagine telling them that Grandma had taken those things away. I wanted him to tell them the actual truth. Their father had enrolled them with information he did not have permission to use. He insisted they would never understand. I said they already understood more than he believed. Then I held up the yellow form and asked whether he had written my name. His eyes touched the signature and moved away. When I asked again, he admitted, I copied it. He had taken the signature from one of my birthday cards. Every year, I gave him a card with a check and a note about what I admired in the father he was becoming. He had turned one of those notes into permission I never gave. The discovery did not make him ashamed at first. It made him angry that I looked hurt, as if my pain were one more burden placed on him. He minimized the document because it was not a loan or a deed. To him, it was only a school form. To me, it told strangers that I made decisions for his children. Derek argued that I had always helped make those decisions. I answered that help required him to ask. He said he was asking now. I said no. He lifted the bin and headed for the garage. At the laundry room door, he warned that if the children lost Willow Creek, they would know exactly why. I waited until his truck disappeared. Then I changed the garage code. In the second bedroom, I found a white index card on the floor. It must have slipped from Owen's backpack. 3 lines appeared in Derek's block printing. We sleep at Grandma Monica's house. Dad stays somewhere else for work. Grandma gets confused, so keep answers short. I sat on the narrow bed and read the lines again. The first two were lies. The third was protection, but not protection for me. It protected the story from me. Derek had prepared the children to explain any contradiction by questioning my memory. He had turned my grief, my age, and my caution into reasons a school employee should not believe me. That was the moment the conflict changed. Until then, I still saw a desperate father who had crossed a line for his children. Now, I saw that he had planned what to do if I stood on the other side of it. I photographed the card, sealed the original in an envelope, and wrote the date on the front. A timeline could not repair a family, but it could keep one from changing what happened. I listed the choices in order. Derek had asked to use my address, and I had refused. He later submitted my utility bill and copied my signature onto a caregiver affidavit. He used my neighborhood for the bus route, told the children to repeat the false residence, and prepared them to describe me as confused. Seeing the sequence removed the fog. Each choice had required another choice. None of it was accidental. I emailed the coordinator, attached the photograph, and asked her to add my statement to the review. I also asked the district not to question the children again unless it was necessary. They had already been placed in the position of protecting adults. The coordinator answered the next morning and confirmed that she and Ms. Caldwell would still conduct the home visit. They would focus on adult statements and documents. Her final sentence mattered most. The district wanted an accurate record and a stable educational plan for both children. I printed the email. Derek called twice that day, but I waited until I was calm. His voicemail accused me of caring more about paperwork than the children. I saved it because the message captured the argument he kept trying to create. He wanted the choice to be children or truth. I was beginning to understand that the children needed both. Thursday evening, my older sister, Nancy, called from Kentucky. Derek had reached her first and told her the district was removing the children because I had reported him. He also said I had refused to let them stay with me. I corrected both claims. The district had not removed anyone. The children had never lived in my house. Nancy suggested they could begin staying there now, but I explained that a future arrangement would not make the earlier forms true. She sighed and said I had always loved rules. That phrase again. I could picture Derek building the family story one call at a time. Mother loves rules more than people. Mother is rigid. Mother is confused. Mother could fix everything with one sentence. I asked what he wanted Nancy to persuade me to do. The answer was exactly what he had asked at urgent care. Confirm that the children stayed with me during the week. Nancy reminded me that families helped one another. I listed the ways I had helped through his divorce, with childcare, and during months when he could not cover every bill. None of that made me a guardian on paper. Nancy called the word fake too harsh. I told her it was accurate. Then she said, "He is scared." I admitted that I was scared too. That surprised her enough to make her listen. I explained Lily's injury, the wrong emergency record, and the walk across Jefferson Avenue. I did not mention the index card, yet because I could not bear to hear anyone explain it away. By the end of the call, Nancy no longer asked me to lie. She only asked me not to destroy my relationship with my son. I looked at the yellow form and told her Derek had placed my name inside a relationship with the school that did not exist. I was trying to stop that lie from destroying the relationship that did. The home visit was scheduled for 9 on Friday. At 8:30, a black sport utility vehicle stopped across from my house. Derek got out with Owen and Lily, both dressed for school, and removed 2 duffel bags from the back. I watched him speak to them before they crossed the street. Owen stared at my house while Lily clutched a strap against her chest. I opened the door before they reached the porch and asked why the children were not in class. Derek claimed they had a dentist appointment later and had wanted to see me first. Owen would not meet my eyes. When I told Derek the bags were not coming inside, he said the district needed to see the children's belongings. I answered that the district needed to see the truth. Lily whispered that she wanted to leave. Derek crouched beside her and said Grandma was only upset. The pattern formed in front of me again. Grandma is upset. Grandma gets confused. Grandma loves rules. Every phrase made him the calm parent and me the obstacle. I knelt with enough space not to crowd her and explained that Ms. Caldwell was coming to speak with the adults. Lily asked whether they were changing schools because her father said I would decide. I told her the school would review accurate information and that Derek would make the plan with them. He accused me of speaking like a brochure. I said I was choosing my words carefully because his daughter was 7 and frightened. A county sedan turned onto the street. Derek looked at the vehicle, then at the bags. For 1 second, he seemed tired instead of angry. "Please," he said. The request was dishonest, but the fear behind it was real. I wanted to take the bags and fill the second bedroom. I wanted to give all of us one quiet morning by pretending the arrangement had existed for months. Then another lie would be required the next week, and another when a teacher asked why the children never arrived from my home. A new lie would be waiting if Lily was injured again. I told him no. The coordinator and Ms. Caldwell walked up the driveway as Derek returned the bags to his vehicle. He brought the children inside. I made coffee nobody touched. The coordinator explained that the visit was not a search. They would view the sleeping space, review the file, and ask the adults to describe the arrangement. Derek said the children stayed with me on most school nights and slept at his apartment on weekends. I stated the actual history. Since August, they had slept in my house twice, both times on Saturday visits. Derek called that being there all the time. He pointed to the guest bed and claimed they also used sleeping bags. I said neither claim was true. Lily began twisting the hem of her shirt, so I asked that the children be removed from the discussion. Ms. Caldwell took them to the screened porch with paper and colored pencils. Through the glass, I watched Owen draw a thick box around his page. The second bedroom told the truth without drama. It held one narrow bed, a dresser filled with sewing fabric, a treadmill with winter coats on the handle, and a basket of old toys. Derek pointed to 2 jackets in the closet as proof of residence. They had been left after Christmas. The nightstand contained crossword books, reading glasses, and Paul's old watch. Derek opened it, saw the watch, and closed it quickly. The room looked exactly like what it was, a grandmother's guest room, not the weekday home of 2 schoolchildren. Back in the kitchen, the coordinator placed the submitted forms on the table. The caregiver affidavit was worse than the page mailed to me. It claimed the children lived primarily in my home because Derek's job required overnight travel. It authorized me to receive records, approve field trips, make educational decisions, and consent to routine medical care. Derek did not travel for work. He serviced commercial heating systems within the county and slept wherever the children slept. I stated again that the signature was not mine. The coordinator asked him directly whether I had signed. Derek avoided the question by saying I had given permission and knew he wanted to keep the children enrolled. I repeated that I had refused during the first conversation. He tried to turn my no into a request for more time, then claimed I always left room to change my mind. The coordinator stopped the argument. The meeting was not about interpreting our family habits. It was about whether the document was accurate. I told her it was not. Derek pushed back his chair and demanded to know what would happen. She explained that the review would continue while the children remained enrolled and the adults considered lawful options. Ms. Caldwell returned from the porch and described the hardship transfer process. Derek would need to disclose the actual residence, request continuity, and provide a transportation plan. The placement was not guaranteed, but the school could document the children's academic and emotional needs. She also mentioned support for families whose housing was unstable. Derek reacted immediately. My housing is not unstable. No one had accused him of that. His speed gave the sentence more weight than a confession would have. After the divorce, he had rented a 2-bedroom apartment at River Bend. I had visited twice. It was crowded but safe. During the previous month, he stopped inviting me inside. The children once mentioned sleeping at Carla's place, then corrected themselves and called it a movie night. I asked whether he still lived at River Bend. He said his home was none of my business. I reminded him that the school needed the children's physical address, not a family slogan. When I asked where they slept, his face closed. The coordinator explained that no legal enrollment plan could move forward without that answer. Derek stood and refused to provide more information until the district promised an outcome. Ms. Caldwell did not threaten him. She simply paused the visit and confirmed Wednesday's review. Derek called the children from the porch. Owen carried a drawing of 2 houses. One was my brick ranch with the crooked screened porch. The other was a gray building with many windows. A yellow bus stood between them, but no person appeared at either door. Derek gathered the district papers by mistake, realized they were not his, and put them back. Before leaving, he told me I could have ended the problem. I could have hidden it, I said. He called that the same thing. I told him it was not. After the truck left, Ms. Caldwell asked whether I knew where the children were staying. I admitted that I had only thought I knew. The answer tasted like failure, even though the concealment was not mine. She reassured me that both children arrived clean, fed, and on time. Their teachers had not reported neglect, though Owen showed anxiety near dismissal. Lily sometimes asked the office whether anyone had called her grandmother. The staff had not understood why. I did. She was waiting for the lie to break. I gave the coordinator the index card. She read the 3 lines and passed it to Ms. Caldwell. Neither woman reacted in front of me. They added it to the file without asking the children to explain. I made one request. Whatever happened next, the district should not treat Owen and Lily as responsible for an adult decision. Ms. Caldwell said they did not punish children for enrollment choices. The district would address the false documents separately while the school focused on accurate placement and safety. That distinction mattered. Consequences did not have to become revenge. After they left, I found Owen's drawing on the desk in the 2nd bedroom. He had forgotten it. At the bottom of the gray building, beneath the windows, he had drawn a shape that looked like a suitcase. I called Derek twice and reached voicemail. I told him I was no longer calling about the review. I needed to know where his children slept. His text came a few minutes later and said they were safe. I answered that safe was not an address. He did not reply. At noon, Carla called and asked whether the children could stay with her through the weekend. Her apartment was in the same complex where Derek had lived. When I asked whether he had moved, the silence on her end told me she assumed I knew. His lease had ended 6 weeks earlier after new owners raised the rent. Since then, he had kept his belongings in storage and rotated with the children among a weekly motel, Carla's couch, and a coworker's basement. Carla said he always described the arrangement as temporary and claimed another apartment was nearly ready. She also admitted he had not come to me because he believed I would take control. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the affidavit. Derek had used my address not only to reach Willow Creek, but also to hide that he no longer had a stable one. The discovery did not excuse his choices. It did explain the size of his fear. For a few minutes, the answer seemed simple. I had a house, and the children needed one. Then I realized that moving them in without correcting the record would let Derek claim his paperwork had merely been early. I needed to separate real help from concealment. The coordinator confirmed that families between permanent homes could receive help with continuity, transportation, and records. The children did not need a false permanent address to avoid an abrupt school change. The support Derek needed had been available, but he had been too ashamed, too proud or too determined to control the story to request it. I asked whether he could still use that process. Her answer was brief: if he tells us the truth. That remained the entire problem. I called Derek and told him Carla had explained the housing situation. He accused me of calling everyone, though I had spoken to one woman after he refused to name the place where his children slept. He admitted that some nights were spent at a motel. When I asked why he had not requested help, he returned to the first conversation and claimed I had rejected the children. I reminded him that he had asked for an address, not a bed. Then he asked what I would have done if he had admitted there was no permanent home. The question hurt because I could not answer with perfect confidence. I might have panicked. I might have offered advice before comfort or made a list when he needed a pillow. I would not have turned him away. I told him I would have asked what he needed. I needed Willow Creek, he said. I answered that he had needed stable housing and honest school support. Derek feared that accepting assistance would mark his children with a label. I understood the fear, but I also knew what false forms did to children. I offered a short stay in my home while he searched for housing, help with a deposit, and an honest statement to the district beginning on the day they moved in. The offer came with boundaries. I would not say they had lived there before Friday, validate the copied signature, or erase the previous months. Derek called that a confession disguised as help. He disliked the written move-out plan and said family should not need contracts. I told him family should not need forged signatures either. He ended the call. An hour later, Nancy called in tears. Derek had told her I knew he was without housing and would only open my door after he admitted to fraud. I corrected the sequence. Nancy then revealed she had sent him deposit money the previous month. The apartment supposedly fell through. I later learned the money had covered storage fees and the overdue balance on his work truck. He was protecting the tools that earned his income and the vehicle that carried them. Each choice could be defended alone. Together, they left 2 children without a bedroom. By Sunday, cousins I barely knew were sending messages about compassion. I did not argue with them. I sent Derek a single written offer. The children and their father could stay temporarily if the district received truthful information, my home was respected, and we agreed on a move-out plan. They were welcome. The lie was not. 3 hours later, he replied, "Keep your conditions." On Monday, I drove to River Bend and found Carla exhausted. Owen sat beside a half-zipped suitcase while Lily brushed a doll's hair on the living room floor. They had slept there for 4 nights and were supposed to return to the motel after Derek's shift. Both children looked relieved when I entered, then worried that relief might betray their father. I did not discuss the school. I asked them to pack what they needed for 3 nights. Carla wanted to know whether Derek had agreed. I said I would call him before we left. He answered on the 4th attempt. I stated the arrangement carefully. The children would stay with me until the review, not as proof of an earlier residence and not under the false caregiver form. I was asking for his permission as their grandmother, beginning that day. Derek mocked my need to make a record, but I insisted on a clear answer. He gave permission. Before hanging up, he asked me not to tell the children he could not provide for them. I promised I would not. In the car, Lily asked whether they were visiting or living with me. I explained that they were staying for 3 nights while their father worked on a plan. She wanted to know what they should say at school. I told them the simple truth. They had slept at my house the previous night, at Carla's before that, and with their father before that. They did not have to make the story easier for adults. Owen repeated Derek's belief that simple answers kept people from using details against you. I agreed that simple could be useful, but it still had to be true. He asked what would happen if truth removed them from Willow Creek. I told him the adults would find the next right place, and that neither child would carry the lie. That night, I put clean sheets on the narrow bed, inflated an air mattress, and cleared 2 drawers. I did not stage a residence. I made room for children who were actually there. The difference mattered. Wednesday's review took place in a conference room beside the school office. Derek arrived 10 minutes late. He looked clean, tired, and furious. Before Ms. Caldwell entered, he set a new form in front of me. It was a caregiver authorization with the dates changed to that Monday. "Sign this one," he said. "Then tell them the kids have been with you more than you first remembered." I did not touch it. "They are with you now," he continued. That proves the arrangement is real. It proves they stayed 3 nights after the district discovered the false record. "Why do you have to say it like that?" "Because that is what happened." He leaned close. "It's only an address. You're not hurting anyone." I looked at the form, then at my son. "You didn't borrow my mailbox," I said. "You made me responsible for a lie." Ms. Caldwell entered with the coordinator and the district family liaison. Derek sat back. The meeting lasted less than an hour, but it held 3 months of choices. The coordinator reviewed the file in order. Derek had listed my house as the children's permanent residence. He had uploaded my electric statement. He had submitted the caregiver affidavit from his own account. The electronic record showed no login or confirmation from me. Then she placed the yellow form on the table. "Mrs. Hale, is this your signature?" "No." "Did you authorize Mr. Hale to reproduce it?" "No." Derek rubbed his palms against his jeans. The coordinator asked whether he wanted to correct his previous statement. He looked at me first. That was his final request. Not spoken, not necessary. All I had to do was soften my face and leave him one opening. He said, "My mother agreed to help," then changed her mind when she realized the district might investigate. I felt the old reflex rise. Explain more, defend your character, prove you are not cold. Instead, I opened my folder. The coordinator slid a correction statement toward me. It revoked every authority claimed in the caregiver affidavit and recorded that the signature had been copied without my consent. Derek watched the pen. "Once you sign that, you cannot take it back." I told him that was the point. For months, every official page had asked the children and me to carry his version. This page would carry mine. I signed my full name slowly, using the same small break between the A and the L that his copy had imitated. Then I dated it and handed it to the coordinator. She scanned the page into the file while we sat there. The false guardianship was no longer only disputed in conversation. It was formally withdrawn. Derek asked whether I understood what the correction might cost him. I said I understood what leaving it uncorrected had already cost Owen and Lily. I handed the coordinator the text from 3 months earlier. Derek had written, "Can I use your address for Willow Creek?" I had replied, "No. The children do not live here." I will not sign a residency form saying they do. Next came the district envelope, the voicemail, the home visit notes, and the photograph of the index card. Ms. Caldwell read the last line aloud. "Grandma gets confused, so keep answers short." Derek's face collapsed before it hardened. "That was for the kids," he said. "They get nervous." "You prepared them to discredit me," I said. "I prepared them not to ramble. You taught them that truth was dangerous and my memory was the problem." The family liaison asked Derek where the children had actually stayed since his lease ended. This time, he answered. "The motel, Carla's apartment, a coworker's basement, his truck for one afternoon between checkout and a night shift, though the children had not slept there. Nobody shamed him. That seemed to unsettle him more than anger would have." The liaison explained the support available while he searched for permanent housing. Transportation could continue for a limited period. The children could remain at Willow Creek while the district reviewed a stability request. He would need to provide accurate contact information and participate in the plan. "So they can stay." He asked, "For now," Ms. Caldwell said, "because there is a lawful process for their situation, not because the false address is accepted." Derek stared at the yellow form. "What happens to me?" The coordinator said the district would document the false filing and revoke the caregiver affidavit. Further action would depend on whether he corrected every record and cooperated. She made no dramatic threat. She did not need one. His lie no longer controlled the room. I asked that my name remain as an emergency contact if Derek agreed, but not as guardian. He looked at me. You still want to be called? I never asked to stop being their grandmother. For the first time that morning, his anger loosened. The children stayed with me for 2 more weeks under a written temporary plan. Derek signed it without making a joke about contracts, and he found a small duplex near his work. It was outside Willow Creek's regular boundary, but the district approved the children to finish the year under the stability plan. He arranged transportation through the liaison instead of sending them across Jefferson Avenue. Nothing became easy overnight. Derek did not apologize after the meeting. He barely spoke to me while moving the children's bags, but he corrected the school records. He gave the office his real address. He listed himself as parent, Carla as secondary pickup, and me as grandmother and emergency contact. The new form was white, not yellow. At the bottom, my name appeared in Derek's handwriting, but there was no signature pretending to be mine. 3 months later, he came to my house alone, and he carried the birthday card he had copied. The check was long gone. The note read, "You are more capable than you know. Let people help before a hard season becomes an emergency." I hated that sentence, he said. I meant it kindly. I know, that made it worse. He sat at my dining table, where Owen usually dismantled radios. Then he said, "I thought if I told you about the apartment, you would look at me the way the school looked at parents who couldn't keep things together." I never looked at parents that way. You looked organized. That is not the same thing, he nodded. I told myself I was protecting the kids, he said. Then every lie needed them to protect me. That was the apology, not perfect, not complete, but honest. I told him trust would return through repeated truth, not one conversation. He said he understood. Owen finished the year at Willow Creek and joined a robotics club. Lily's reading improved enough that she volunteered to read at the spring assembly. I sat beside Derek in the second row, and when Lily reached a difficult word, she stopped. The whole room waited. Then she sounded it out and kept going. Afterward, she ran to us with a certificate in her hand. Derek took one side, I took the other. There was no argument about who had done more. The following fall, both children started at the school assigned to Derek's duplex. The transition was not a disaster. Owen found a science teacher who let him repair an old weather station. Lily received reading support there too. Children can survive change when adults stop asking them to carry the shame around it. I began volunteering in their library 1 morning a week. I signed in as Monica Hale, grandmother. The first time I saw that word printed beside my name, I stood at the desk longer than necessary. Grandmother was enough. I still keep the yellow form in a folder, though not as a weapon or because I expect another hearing. I keep it because there was a time when I believed saying no to my son meant abandoning him. That paper reminds me what happened when I said yes to every rescue before he even asked. Love can open a door. It can make a bed. It can drive a child to school, answer an emergency call, and help with a deposit, but love is not a false signature. A boundary did not make my home colder. It made every welcome inside it honest. My address is where I live. My family knows they are welcome there. They also know the truth always has to come through the door with them.